Okay, guys, we are back here looking at the 3D Pontiac Fiero build, and right now I want to bring you into my world of tires, wheels and tires. I've been 3D printing wheels and tires for this thing for the last couple of days, trying different color combinations of wheels, tires, and that is my prime example of learning to print wheels and tires. With a filament printer, not going to get the greatest results, but they are not bad. But they do require quite a bit of cleaning up. And I don't know if this is a fault of the file that I'm using, but you can see here where in quite a few places it's not exactly laying the filament down super smooth. They are usable though, as the car is going to have a lowered stance, so you're not really going to see any of the defects in the wheels and tires. I'm also going ahead and printing tiny brake calipers, which also will require quite a bit of cleaning up to get this result you see here. This is the raw one that I just pulled off the printer now, so I'm going to do some cleaning up on that. Don't know if I have to print another one. I'm not really thrilled the way this one came out, but I'm going to try and clean it up and see if we can get them looking just like that. Now, I'll show you one set of the wheels which are painted already. You can see, like I said, they are a little rough. It's kind of hard for the printer to make these tiny little details. And you can see here where the print did fail in a few places. Again, not sure if that's a problem with the file I got. It was a free file after all. And, but they came out looking pretty decent. So I did print the rear wheel just a slightly larger than the front wheels just to practice scaling. And I think I've got that down pretty pat because I got the wheels in exactly the sizes that I wanted. So now I'm going to do a little bit of cleaning up on this brake rotor here. And maybe lay a little bit of clear cement over these spokes just to thicken them up a little bit like I did here. As I wanted the spokes to be just a little bit thicker than what the print made them out to be. Although they do look pretty good at that thin diameter of the spoke there. So I'll show you my process for thickening up the spokes also, as we go through and continue with this build. Okay, now the first thing I'm going to do is we're going to just smooth out the edges of this rotor so that we can get it nice and round. And for that, I'm going to use my coarsest bit of sandpaper here. This stuff is not the easiest stuff in the world to sand. Unlike styrene, it requires a bit more effort to clean up. I think I said previously during this build that if you want to build something that's super detailed and has a lot of tiny parts and tiny details, then resin printing is the way to go. Now, if you want to build something larger and you don't mind doing all the sanding work, then you can use the filament printing that I'm using here. Because you can get pretty decent results with it. Now, will you get better results than you can with resin? I don't know. Some people say you can get similar results or as good. I don't know if I'm totally in agreement with that, as I do think the resin printing does give you much better results when you're talking about something that's tiny and really detailed. But the results I'm getting from this are really not that bad. Are not really not bad. I mean, yeah, you have to do a bit more work than with resin. I don't know. I haven't worked with resin really other than buying the stuff that's already been printed, like from Iceman Collections, who's got some really amazing stuff. So I couldn't really tell you whether printing something in resin is easier than doing it with the filament printer. As I am no expert, I'm just learning 3D printing now. Okay, we're going to be painting the rotor with Mr. Color Super Metallic 2 Super Iron, as it really gives a nice color, exactly what I was looking for the rotors. Now we're going to set that to dry for a bit, and then we're going to paint the caliper with Mr. Hobby Aqueous Gundam Red, which I found was a really nice color for these calipers. Alright, so now I'm going to show you how I smooth out the spokes to totally remove the layer lines, which are not too bad on this here since I've painted a little bit. What I do is I take my GS Hypo Cement with its tiny little applicator here. And what I do is I run a small bead of the cement over the spokes. Making sure that it's just a small bead. And a little bit right there in the center. And that's going to help to thicken up the spokes, as a couple of them spokes were very, very small. Then if I have to get any of the excess glue out, I just go over with little cotton swabs and just absorb some of the glue to remove it from the wheel. And here you can see how much smoother the spokes look on the wheel. Now it's a little tricky because if the slightest bit of pressure and this glue just wants to come pouring out of the tube. So you have to just gently get the glue moving. So now we're going to let that dry. We have our brake rotors. Okay, now we're going to start painting our caliper. Just wanted to walk you through that. I'm using Mr. Hobby Aqueous Gundam Red, and these paints are really great. They have fantastic coverage, and you can airbrush or brush paint them right out of the bottle. So now we're going to install the wheels and tires. Just going to show you guys how I installed them on the... I've already put the other ones in with the brake calipers and everything in it. Now one thing I have to be very aware of is the orientation of the caliper so that it matches the orientation on the other side. As you can see here, the caliper is slightly raised up at a higher angle than the one in the front. And I would like to say, yeah, because I wanted to make it look a little more realistic, and the calipers don't always face the same way. But that's not really what happened. I put the wheel down before I realized where it was, and then the super glue dried and it was stuck there. So I kind of left it that way. Looks kind of cool, though. So now we have to make sure I get the same orientation for the caliper on the other side. as I glue it down onto the car. So the first thing I do is I install the caliper into the wheel, and I also have to make sure that I have the orientation correct on the tire, because the print on the tires, none of them came out 100%, and there are gaps in the print. Not really sure why that happened. It might have been something in the file, but considering that this car is sitting so low on its tires, the lowered stance just hides the defect of the wheels. I think I may have mentioned that once before. And the ones that it doesn't hide, I've managed to position directly under, right, directly where the tires contact the ground, so that you'll never see it when it's sitting. Kind of worked out great that way. So I'm very happy with that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to install the brake caliper. Now, I already know that I'm going to have to orient the tire so that that'll be the top, that'll be the bottom. Now the brake rotor has to sit pretty much like that. I've got to get it into the right spot so that I can put a drop of glue on there to hold it steady. I also try to center it the best that I can. These rotors, I found out after I tried to sit them in here that they are not 100% perfectly centered on the wheels. That may have been due to my printing process, or again, it may be the file. This was a free file. I can't really complain.
Hey, stop your bitching.
So there we go. We have the rotor in place. Now we'll just put a drop of glue, a little drop of super glue, if the super glue will work with me here. Oh wait, I didn't check to see I have the caliper in the right orientation, as there is a front and a back to this caliper. And of course I've got it backwards. There we go. Now let's check our tire orientation. That is correct. Our caliper should sit. No, actually I had it. It should go this way. Let's just make sure. Yeah, this is the orientation that we need here. And that's going to be straight up. Now, one thing you always got to be aware of is that they've got to be facing in the opposite direction of the way you did on the other side, because this is a mirror image of the other side. And now we have our caliper exactly where we want it. So now it comes time to figure out where we're going to place our tire. As you can see, I have a slight wheel gap here. Now that's the same wheel gap that I want to replicate on this side, as I wanted to have a little more of a realistic appearance. I didn't want the car sitting on the tires, because I was not really crazy about that look. I wanted to give it more of a streetable appearance, and that just involves matching I think that is going to work right there. Now, luckily, the super glue gives me gives me like a minute or so before it starts to set up, which gives me time to maneuver it. So what I do is I just put a nice liberal amount of super glue on the upper half of the tire that's going to be contacting the wheel well. Then I just take it, I drop it right in there, maneuver it where I want it, think that is just out. And without thinking about what I'm doing, drop it on top of everything.
Double dumbass on you!
Okay, let's try that again. We're going to... Great, just made a mess out of it. Drop some accelerator on there. Worst comes to worst, we can always pop it off and redo it. Isn't it always the case? Just when you think everything's going right, you do something really silly, like what I just did. Alright guys, now we're going to make some exhaust tips for the 3D printed Fiero. And it's going to be very easy. Just take a little bit of tubing. I found some that's the perfect diameter. And all I'm going to do is slice off one little bit there. See, let's compare them to the other two, which came out the perfect size. Now we're going to just glue the two exhaust tips together. With our trusty Tamiya cement. I was going to try and make them out of aluminum, but they proved a little too problematic to glue together. Okay, and now we're just going to give that a little time to dry out, and then we're going to make our final cuts on it, and our exhaust tips will be done. Okay guys, now it's time for doing a little test fitting of our exhaust tips to make sure that they fit precisely within the little gaps where the exhaust outlets are on the rear of the car. They're cut in just like the real car, so now we just need to make sure that it's going to fit. If not, then we have to start all over again. Alright guys, here you see the final result of our exhaust tip work. I've painted them with all-clad aircraft aluminum, given them a nice polished look, glued them into the bumper, and they are looking really good now. Also painted in the rear reflectors, just to finish off the detail work, and I am really happy with the end result here. So I think we're pretty much done with this, so now it's time for the big reveal. And if you guys have stuck around this long, you're really going to enjoy this. Okay guys, this is it. The end of the road for the 3D printed Pontiac Fiero. This has been a fun build. It's my first ever 3D printed build, and let me tell you something. It was a little bit more than what I expected. I'm happy with the way it turned out. Is it a perfect model representation of the Fiero? No, it's not, as it is missing quite a few of the details. And if you guys watch this whole build, you'll know that I had to paint in most of them. The panel lines are missing on this particular model. I'm not really sure how well in trying to engrave the lines in would have worked, as I've never tried that before on 3D printed models, because this is my first one. So I kind of left them off. You can see a slight impression of the panel lines as I drew them in on the passenger side, just as an experiment to see how they would show through on the paint. And I wasn't really sure if I was happy with that. I didn't do it on the driver's side because I wanted to just have a comparison between what it looked like with the lines and without. And I'm not sure which one I like more. You guys let me know in the comments. But it is missing all of the panel lines for the hood, the trunk, the rear deck lid, the headlights, and the where the front fenders meet the front bumper. And so, it's a couple of some of the details are missing, but the details that are there are really, really well made. I mean, I am surprised at how well this thing captured the exact lines of the Fiero. Now, as you can see, I did throw in some aftermarket wheels because the wheels that printed with the model more represented a four-cylinder Fiero, and I wasn't really looking to build something like that. I wanted to build something somewhat custom, so I threw some wheels on it that I found files online for. The brake rotors and calipers, which I also found with these wheels. And I don't know who the original maker of the files were. Didn't really get that info. I just kind of found them and downloaded them, and I don't really remember where even I got them. But this really came out nice. I'm very happy with it, even though it's not as detailed as what I normally would like to build. We'll talk about some of the details on the body. The windshields, the side windows, the quarter windows are all really perfectly represented. The mirrors are there. I mean, everything is just really captures the look of the Fiero. Now, one thing I want to talk about is sanding. You really have to sand down these layer lines. If you don't, it's just going to look almost like a pixelated image from an old Atari game. I didn't sand down the lines on the rear glass, and even my sanding job on the body wasn't perfect. As I said, this is more of an experiment to try and learn how to 3D print than anything else. And while I'm happy with the results, it is definitely not perfect. Now, I didn't bother sanding the layer lines on the rear glass, so you can see kind of what it looked like when it came off the printer. I kind of wanted to have that so I can do a comparison of what I sanded and what I didn't. So I kind of left that the way it was, just more for curiosity reasons than anything else. And I did sand the body down, required quite a bit of sanding to smooth that body out. Then a lot of filler, it went a little bit heavy with the coats of primer and paint on it. And then just more sanding. And I'm very happy with the way it came out. It's painted Tamiya bright red with Tamiya clear over it. And for what it is, I think it really turned out nicely. I didn't expect it to come out this smooth or even look anywhere near this nice. But I'm happy with it. Now, the wheels and tires, if you watch this whole episode, we went through the whole process of what I went through to get these wheels and tires to fit this car properly, the brakes as well. And I gotta say, I plan on doing this again. With what I've learned from this particular model, it's that resin printing for our hobby is really the way to go. While you can print with filament printing like what I have, and you can get a decent result, as you can see here, you'll get much better results with resin printing. I really can't stress that enough, because I've got a few resin printed parts from Iceman Collections, and they are amazing. And you just will not be able to replicate that kind of detail with the filament printer in such a small scale. Now, if I had done this in a much larger scale, it might have come out better. But I didn't really know how to scale things until I did the tires, so the body came out the way the body came out. Couldn't really do anything about that because I didn't know how. Now I do, and if I do another one, I can do it at a larger size. So, to end this, let me just tell you guys, 3D printing is fun. It's fun to work with. It's fun to watch the machine print everything out. It's fun to go through the entire process of turning it into what you see here. And I do have more 3D print projects coming up. The Buck Rogers Starfighter, the Buck Rogers Thunderfighter. And then there's another model which I just 3D printed, which I'm trying to figure out how it all goes together. Because one thing about 3D printed models, they don't come with instructions. So you got to kind of figure it out. So I'm going to end it here, guys. And just let you know I'm really happy with this. And it's just another facet of the hobby. If you guys have been hesitant to get into it, filament printing is a much easier mode of printing than printing with resin. And but just know that the results aren't going to be as good as resin. But it's a good way to get your feet wet into this facet of the hobby. And you can get pretty decent results like what I got here. So that's it, guys. I'm going to end it here. And that's the end of the 3D printed Pontiac Fiero. Although we may see another one on the channel at some point because I really want to do another one now. Alright, guys. I'll see you on the next one.